Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is, of course, Tuesday, December the 30th, 2025. So we're almost done with 2025. So just a couple more days left here. Friendly reminder to everybody, of course, on both my YouTube and Rumble channels. If you guys haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. With that being said, we're going to, of course, give people a chance to come in before we get started. Let's see now. So we're at 1.5 minutes here. Got two people, and then maybe I will go ahead and start a little early here then. Since we have listed here two people, it looks like already. Two watching now. So, all right. So maybe I will go ahead and talk. So um, tonight we're going to continue our look at a recent interview that Neon Genesis Evangelion director and Shin Kamen writer director Hideaki Anno recently gave, talking about different aspects of anime. Last night we talked about his comments on how he feels that Japanese creators should focus on just publishing their works for the Japanese audience, and if if they do bring in some Western audience members, then that's a bonus. Tonight, in another portion of his interview, hey there, Devil Flyer, yo ho, Devil Flyer, hey there, Rex, thanks for popping in. To give you a heads up, my friend, I'm gonna be sending out a link tomorrow night, everybody, for the show. I'm gonna be doing a special year-end panel, so of course you're invited. So I'll be sending you the link if you want to join me after you're done with your show. Around 5 Pacific, 7 Central. So just giving you a heads up on that. But anyways, back to what I was talking about here. So we're going to continue looking at portions of the interview. This portion talking about, in this particular part of the interview, he was talking about how he's noticed that of late, it doesn't seem like there's much anime or good anime, anyways, being being produced for kids. So we're going to be looking at those comments and try to get dig into the depth of what he was saying there. And then we'll also get caught up on all the latest in pro wrestling, with the wrestling wrap up. Of course, we'll be looking back to last night's Monday Night Raw, which I unfortunately failed to give the preview for. At least we'll be looking ahead to tonight's NXT, and also Ring of Honor had a special YouTube episode tonight. We'll be looking at that as well. Be at least giving a preview of that. And then we'll be, of course, wrapping up with the second to the last This Day in Each History segment for 2025, with tomorrow being the last one, of course. So now we're up at, it looks like we're up at past 4.5 minutes already. So why don't we go ahead? Hold on a sec. Yeah, okay. These are the right glasses. Actually, give me a sec. I'm going to go off camera here for a quick moment. Kind of see if I can clean up my glasses a little bit here. Anyways, I'll be right back, and when I come back, we'll get started. All right, I'm back. So now, with the fact I'm back now, let's go ahead and get into the material here. Get into that Ono, Hideaki Anno interview there. Alrighty then, so here we go. And again, one last friendly reminder before we get started. If you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, with that being said, let's get into this. Here we go with the article we're going to go over tonight. All right, so Shin Kamen Rider director Hideaki Anno calls out major problem with modern entertainment. Quote, there really aren't many good works aimed at children, unquote. Article by Spencer Cooley, published back on December 26th, which of course was last Friday. Last Friday, I believe. So let's see what's going on here. So, though specifically speaking to the topics as it relates to Japan, Neon Genesis Evangelion creator and noted tokusatsu enjoyer Hideaki Anno recently hit upon a growing worldwide sentiment when he argued that the biggest issue facing the country's modern entertainment industry is its ongoing lack of kid-specific works, both animated and live action. All right. A relevant expert, given his experience in creating Neon Genesis Evangelion and his personal history with classic tokusatsu, having grown up during the genre's rise and eventually channeling his resulting love into the critically acclaimed Shin Godzilla, Shin Ultraman, and Shin Kamen Rider film reboots, Anno offered his critique while speaking to Forbes Japan, alongside Godzilla Minus One director Takashi Yamazaki on the current state of the country's domestic entertainment scene. Again, this is all part of the same interview that we covered part of the interview yesterday, the part where he's talking about the, whether or not Japanese creators should actually try to cater to American audience or Western audiences, while this portion is talking more about how it relates to what they're producing for kids. Anyways, as we continue on here, per a machine translation provided by ChatGPT, at one point asked as to their personal opinions on how the Japanese government could best support its previously announced Cool Japan initiatives, as launched in 2024, with a goal of tripling the country's overseas media sales from the year's record 38 billion to 20 trillion Japanese yen, which is the equivalent of 131.4 billion US dollars by 2033, to which Anno took the lead and asserted, quote, what first draws attention is probably the money. Statements like, in smaller quotes, it exceeds steel in export value, for example, but rather than the money, I think it's good that attention has been paid to the fact that Japanese culture can be transmitted to the world at low cost. And I think, as a nation, I would be better to value that aspect. I think it would be better to value that aspect. And I would say that a lot of fans, and we kind of talked a little bit about this yesterday when he was talking about the other issue that we were mentioning there. I think that's wholeheartedly agreed to. I know Metal also made that point on his show as well last night. Um, um, but anyway, quote, Korea and China are doing it as well, unquote, he added, quote, and originally Hollywood was doing it too, unquote. Nodding in agreement with his fellow Godzilla visionary, Yamazaki further explained, quote, it's clear that the way Japanese people felt about Americans after the war changed drastically because of the dramas of that time. People watch things like Father Knows Best. Well, Father Knows Best wasn't a drama; it was more of a comedy. But and even though Americans had been um, had been called Kichiku Beihei, brutal devil, in parentheses there, brutish, devilish Americans and British, parentheses. People thought, quote, wow, Americans live such wonderful lives and they're such good people, unquote. Quote, I think Korea's national power also rose greatly thanks to content. Having people watch Japanese works and come to like Japanese people equals having them come to like Japanese products. Again, true. you know, again, if you're a true fan of something, you're not going to want to make it change. If you fall in love with something like that, you're going to fall in love with it because it is what it is, not because of what you think it should be, right? It's in a way, it's kind of backward thinking, I think, to watch something or to like something to watch it for what you think it should be instead of what it is. I think it's kind of a backward way of thinking there. But anyways, in order to have people like the country itself, it becomes a powerful weapon despite requiring relatively little investment. People in government have finally started to realize this, unquote. And we've heard of other like manga and anime creators who are involved in the Japanese their parliament, basically. People like Ken Akamatsu have come out with very similar sentiments on the matter. Um, um, and again, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. That goes for both my YouTube and my Rumble viewers. So feel free to chime in anytime, guys, if anything catches your attention. All right, so continuing on then. As soon as, of course, I can find the cursor and get back to the window that I was looking at here. Okay. Consigning Yamazaki's take with the observation that, quote, the cost performance is extremely good, and there isn't anyone who ends up unhappy, unquote. The Evangelion creator then turned to address the potential challenges that could stand in the way of Cool Japan's success, beginning with the blunt observation that, quote, what I think is the biggest problem right now is that there is little animation aimed at younger age groups, at children. there really aren't many good works, unquote. Yeah, I mean, Pokemon has finished running its course. I don't know about Digimon, Um, and yeah, we have seen in the past where they've kind of edited certain animes to make them more marketable for children, but where you actually have anime that is specifically geared towards kids, that does come up. They do kind of come up short in that manner. Quote, when we were children, it was overflowing with them. Primetime was full of children's programs, which is kind of a surprise because here in the States, usually the cartoons for the kids would usually be like after school, before and after school hours. Get up in the morning, you sit the kids in front, as they're getting ready, as they're having their breakfast, you have them, you put on the cartoons to kind of keep them entertained. And then when they get home from school, you put on the cartoons to keep them entertained. So, um, let's see. That includes anime and tokusatsu. Um, Tokusatsu, and what you might call simple science programs as well. I think it's how our sensibilities and various aspects of us were formed. One cause is the declining birth rate, but it's a compound problem. Yeah, and something that, of course, Metal and I have talked about a bit, and I know some other I know commentators have talked about this as well, is that one of the things that the diet is actually trying to do, I think in part through Cool Japan in a way, right? Is they're wanting, they're actually, and granted, this doesn't go towards what they're talking about here, but one of the things in order to try to spur, um, let's say, more births, they're asking, mangaka and anime creators to create more manga and anime with more like kind of romance involved and more, you know, more fan service to kind of get people excited and maybe get people to, start bringing more kids in the world. I think. But it's a compound problem, including the rise and fall of television trends. From a certain point, television became nothing but variety shows, unquote. And of course, with streaming now, that even lessens the influence of television as well, because people can basically become their own programming director when you can stream it. You can find some site, whatever site, go on that find whatever programs you want to watch or what have you, and then you can just become your own program director. Excuse me there. But far from the only problem facing the Japanese entertainment industry, and in no way an exclusive one, as this lack of children's programming, is also a feature of such other worldwide entertainment leaders like United States and the UK. Ano also called out Japan's lack of media stewardship, telling his host, quote, if I say this, I'll probably get scolded. But there are not many people who comprehensively organize anime, tokusatsu, Japanese film, and so on as history and then guide the industry, unquote. Quote, there are few critics of real insight. Universities have finally begun doing this, but as one part of that, I'm putting effort into archives. And it's kind of what he alluded to yesterday is that, or actually, no, this is actually something that Metal on his show or talked about yesterday. That Metal himself, instead of rebooting a series, actually, rather than coming up with his own take on a series, he'd rather just, you know, he'd rather just make an adaptation of what's already out there. So, um, But anyways, continuing on here. Let's see. But it's precisely something I want the state to do. Local governments or a single animation company have their limits. But by preserving materials and immediate production outputs from anime and tokusatsu, manga, and games, it connects to the next generation. Now, here in the United States, we actually do have kind of a thing that does that, like where we kind of chronicle the past in a way. It's called the National Film Registry, and I've been reading a lot this past year as I've been going through the this day and age history. Number of classic cartoons over the years have been archived in the National Film Registry. I think what he's talking about here is doing something similar in Japan, having some kind of national film or national anime registry for classic animes. That might be something of note. But anyways, there are discoveries like in smaller quotes. So this is how it was made on smaller quote, and there is emotion and inspiration. Ideally, a new generation sees that and thinks, in smaller quotes, I want to make something like this too, on smaller quote, and we will continue doing that, unquote. As we continue on here, of course. And finally, the final issue that caught Ano's attention was "quote unquote" tax credits, with the Gunbuster director explaining, "quote taxes really are high in terms of developing human resources. The apprentice system has also largely collapsed, so I would be glad if support were provided at a level that would allow it to be rebuilt." So what he's saying he wants to see is he wants to see the idea of an apprentice system where you know those are a little bit more already established in maybe the older mangas and anime creators and those are a little bit more established. They mentor the younger group, the newer group coming in to like kind of help them develop the skills and talent to continue what they started, basically. Um, let's see. Quote, the production floor is extremely tight, so it's hard to allocate money and labor to that extent, unquote. He concluded. Quote, basically, it's like once in a while a hit comes out, and that's what allows things to keep going, unquote. Putting a final stamp on the matter, Yamazaki further elaborated, quote, in the industry, there's a term called tent pole, small goods, like the pole supporting a tent. The film industry itself is always running a deficit, but occasionally there's a major hit that supports it. And only then does the industry function. It's close to gambling. When things are bad, they're extremely bad, unquote. All right, so there we go with that one. So there we go with that article. That's the only one we were going to do tonight, and I'm trying to keep the show to 45 minutes tonight. Let's see, we're coming up on just past the 28-minute mark here, so I think I will get ready to move on to the wrestling wrap up. As I said, we have some stuff to look back on from last night's Monday Night Raw, as well as looking ahead to tonight's NXT, as well as as I said, Ring of Honor having a special episode tonight on YouTube. We'll look ahead to that as well. So with that, let's talk a little. Let's get into the wrestling wrap up here and talk a bit about what happened on last night's Monday Night Raw. So as soon as I go pull that up, let's see if I can, of course, because the cage match was having a little difficulty earlier. Alright, well, at least they did get into that. So, of course, on last night's Monday Night Raw, there were some things that, some other news. So, last night's Monday Night Raw came from the Kia Center in Orlando, Florida, with Wade Barrett and Joe Testatori on commentary. And the show opened up with a triple threat match for the WWE Women's World title, in which Stephanie McCurr had retained over Nikki Bella and Raquel Rodriguez, a match that was set up about a week or so ago after Nikki Bella had interfered in a title match between Stephanie McCurr and Raquel Rodriguez. We saw that big goosebump that Raquel got on her head after Nikki slammed her head first into the steel steps. Let's see. Of course, and some other women's news last night, women's wrestling news. There's a promo between Becky Lynch and Maxine Dupree in terms of their lead up to next Monday night, as Maxine Dupree will be defending the women's Intercontinental title against Becky Lynch, in which they had a pretty heated exchange over the Intercontinental title. Let's see. You also saw Kabuki Warriors try to attack, went after Rhea Ripley and were beating her up, only for Rhea's partner right now, Io Sky, to come out and of course, to help her partner out. So as Rhea Ripley and Io Sky, fended off the attacks of the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. Now, some other women's news as well. It was also reported that there is a possibility that Piper Niven may be forced to retire due to some neck injury she sustained after taking a bad bump on her neck. Move that or situation that, of course, William Regal had recently commented on, and some people were thinking that he was taking a shot at AEW, only for AEW Vice President Kenny Omega to come out to Regal's defense and talk about, no, this isn't a us versus them kind of thing. This is a safety thing. Landing certain ways on your neck and damaging your neck, to where you can have the best quality of life you can have later after your career is over. That's what Regal was really getting at. He wasn't really criticizing AEW or anything like that. So, and more news from last night's, of course, Monday Night Raw. More news. In just under 3.5 minutes, Gunther had come out and defeated R-Truth in just under 3.5 minutes. As some people are saying that Gunther's booking's a little weak right now, coming off of his victory over John Cena, and Gunther's big verbal aside, just basically calling, punking out Cena, who's now retired. So then you had a match in which Rey Mysterio defeated Austin Theory of the Vision via DQ. It also saw, of course, the official announcement earlier in the evening by Paul Heyman that Austin Theory was now part of the Vision. So Paul Heyman's Vision faction is Logan Paul, Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, and Austin Theory, with Logan Paul interfering in Theory's match and getting caught red-handed by the referee doing so. He disqualified, and as they tried to attack Rey Mysterio, we saw the return coming back from a recent injury. Penta made his return to the WWE after having been injured a while back. It looks like Penta and Rey may be forming an alliance. And then in the main event saw the WWE World Tag Team titles being defended as the Usos, for the 9th time, Jay and Jimmy Uso became WWE World Tag Team Champions, defeating AJ Styles and Dragon Lee. And some people have kind of jokingly called, calling their tag team AJ Lee, purposely conjuring confusion with the actual wrestler and CM Punk's wife, AJ Lee. There was also another confrontation. Speaking of CM Punk, there was another confrontation between him and Braun Breaker in the lead up to their upcoming match next Monday night for the World Heavyweight title, in which Braun Breaker will be trying to take the title from CM Punk. So that's all that pretty much happened on last night's Monday Night Raw. Now let's take a look ahead to tonight's NXT. Talk a little bit about what's going down on tonight's NXT. The year-end awards, which I guess they'll be handing, much like TNA did the other day, they'll be handing out awards on their show. On tonight's episode of NXT, coming from the WWE Performance Center in Orlando, Florida, the night will open up in a singles match and a non-title match in which NXT Women's Champion Jacy Jayne will be taking on Ren Sinclair. In the finals for the number one contenders match to see who will next challenge Jasper Troy for the WWE Speed title, former Heritage Cup champion Lexis King takes on former member of the No Quarter Catch crew, Tavian Heights. OTM out of the mud of Bronco Nima and Lucian Price will be taking on the team of Swipe Right of Brad Baylor and Ricky Smokes from the Evolve brand, with Evolve champion Jackson Drake in their corner. Ethan Page defends the WWE NXT North American title against TNA's Moose. And the main event we'll see in what is hoped to be the finisher of a recent feud. Ricky Saints will be taking on Javon Evans. Also during the show, they'll be, I believe, handing out awards for this past year's NXT, as this will be, of course, the final episode of NXT for 2025, the year-end award show, along with these matches that we were just talking about. And I'll have the results for those tomorrow, of course. And then, with that being said, tonight's special YouTube episode of Ring of Honor, the fourth such episode that's been done. Coming from the Hammerstein Ballroom, with Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccaboni on commentary. The matches set up for tonight's show include Rocky Romero of the Don Callis family taking on Ace Austin of the Bullet Club. The Death Riders, Daniel Garcia and Wheeler Yuta, taking on Jordan Oliver and Alec Price, a team that's been kind of making a name for themselves on the Northeast independent scene. Satnam Singh will be taking on Charles Mason. In a tag team match, Big Bill and Brian Keith are formerly of the Learning Tree will be taking on the Dark Order duo of Alex Reynolds and John Silver. Mark Davis of the Don Callis family will be taking on Matt Mako. And in a proving ground match, to earn a shot at the Ring of Honor World Women's Television title, Janai Kai will be taking on Women's Television Champion Red Velvet. Now, there's a proving ground match. So in a proving ground match, it simply means that if Janai Kai can either last a 10-minute time limit or beat Red Velvet, she will earn a shot at the Ring of Honor Women's World Television title at a later date. So that's it for the wrestling wrap up. We will of course have the results of the shows from tonight, as well as looking ahead to tomorrow night's Dynamite. As the fallout from the World's End pay-per-view continues, we'll see all that. But now we're about to finish out the show here. We will go ahead and we'll of course go ahead now, and I will now, with today being Tuesday, December the 30th, 2025, let's take a look back at this date in each history. So, first off, we're going to head back 30 years ago. And on this date, 30 years ago today, as soon as I, of course, pull that up. On this date, 30 years ago today, Graz Entertainment and Capcom's Darkstalkers completed its run in syndication on this date back in 1995. So 30 years ago today, Darkstalkers, also known as Darkstalkers the Animated Series, completed its syndicated run on this date back in 1995. Darkstalkers is a children's animated television series produced by Graz Entertainment, aired on first-run syndication from September to December 1995. The cartoon is loosely based on the Capcom fighting game Darkstalkers Night Warriors that ran for one season of 13 episodes. Again, this was basically this was a cartoon that focused on, of course, vampires, albeit they did tone it down from the game, as much as possible to make it to where it was more, kid friendly, obviously. So, the Darkstalkers series is a good video game adaptation. All right, thank you, Metal. And now, that, of course, let's get ready to move on to the next piece in each history. As we move ahead to the year 2005, On this date in 2005, 20 years ago today, and I bring that up. On this year, 20 years ago today, Madhouse's Paradise Kiss completed its run on Japanese television on Fuji TV. So, on this day, back in 2005, 20 years ago today, Madhouse's Paradise Kiss completed its run on Japanese television. A 12-episode anime television series adaptation produced by Aniplex and Studio Madhouse aired on Fuji TV's Noida Anime programming block from October to December 2005. So the Paradise Kiss anime completed its run on TV on its date back in 2005, 20 years ago. And finally, on this date in the year 2015, yeah, and Metal, I don't know if you caught some of my earlier, but I did cover the other part of Hideaki Anno's interview earlier in the show. If you want to go back and check that out before your show. I also went back last night and watched a portion of your show where you were talking about Anno's comments on the Japanese entertainment market. So, anyways, so here we go. So 10 years ago today, back in 2015, the 10th issue of Gem and the Holograms from IDW went on sale on newsstands on this date 10 years ago. Sold for $3.99, 28 pages. Of course, this comic was based on, of course, the 1986 Filmation cartoon series Gem. Obviously, a somewhat of a more modern look compared to the 1986 look, as it were. So with that, that's all I got for you guys tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Tomorrow, and Metal, give you a heads up on this as well. I'll be sending links out tomorrow to do a panel show, year-end panel show for the Mikestand. So, of course, I'll be inviting a lot of my usual co-hosts for my historical anime, or historical comic retrospectives. Talk about what's gone on the last year, looking ahead to the new year tomorrow. We of course will have also, of course, the wrestling, portions of the wrestling wrap up and this day in each history for that as well. And then don't forget this Thursday when we do start up a new year, we will be our starting points for the rotation for the this day in each history will be renewed with, of course, comics 1936, pro wrestling 1951, animation 1926, and anime 1966. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.